Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Gopinath Radha Shri Radhe, Jaya Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Jaya Jaya Gurudev, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So Hare Krishna everyone, and welcome to today's discussion. Today we'll be talking on the glories and appearance of Lord Vaman Dev. So today's discussion will be part 1 of 2. We will continue on tomorrow as well. So before I begin, I would like to thank everyone for attending, and I would like to offer my humble obeisances to everyone for giving me this opportunity to speak. If I do happen to make any mistakes, please forgive me. I will make mistakes, so yeah. Let's do Mangacharan. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapata Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagna Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagna Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarobhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavalebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhutermatpir puro vibhu nirmaya shaite yadamoshu purusha mungte gunansho dashisho dashatmaka sholam kishishta bhagavan vachamsi me Shri Krishna Sharanam Sharanagatam Katha Amritam Satata Pibatam Bhakti Vedanta Marga Panthanam Sarvaloka Rishi Deva Janna Prasannam Sarvaloka Rishi Deva Janna Prasannam. So again, Hare Krishna everyone, and welcome. So we'll be discussing the glories of Bali Maharaj and the Vamandev pastime. So Lord Vamandev appeared in this world from the womb of Aditi. He appeared at the auspicious moment of Shravana Dwadashi. So during this time, it is said that in Srimad Bhagavatam, that all three worlds, the higher planetary systems, the outer space, this earth itself, all demigods, all cows, all brahmanas, and even the seasons themselves, they were happy due to the appearance of the Lord. Therefore, that day when Lord Vamandev appeared is known as Vijaya, or in other words, the day of victory. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared, and he appeared carrying a conch shell, his Sudarshan Chakra, the Gada, the club, the lotus flower, and he also had a golden crown as well as a Kaustuba money, which is a celestial jewel. So his body, it was blackish, and he was dressed in very beautiful yellow garments. Now, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's known to have a Satchidananda body, and he appeared as a son of Kashyapa and Aditi. And both parents were astonished by the amount of beauty that this little boy had. So after his appearance, the Lord assumed the form of a dwarf, so Vamana, and all the sages and the great sages, they expressed their jubilation. And with Kashyapa Muni before them, they performed the birthday ceremony of Lord Vamana. Now, at the time of Lord Vamandev's sacred thread ceremony, appearing as a young child, he was awarded a lot of things by a lot of great personalities. So he was awarded a sacred thread by Brahaspati, the guru of all gods. He was awarded, he was given the Gayatri mantra by the sun god Surya Dev. And then by Kashyapa Muni, a straw belt, who is his father. Mother Earth, Bhumi Devi, gave him deer skin, and Lord Brahma gave him a water pot. Kuvera, the heavenly treasurer, he's known as the heavenly treasurer, gave him a monk's begging bowl. And the wife of Lord Shiva, Parvati, gave him the first alms. Now, in this way, the gods all offered the best of what they had to the Supreme God. So each of us, in our own way, we must also give the best of what we own, our intelligence, our wealth, our words, as a gift to that same God. He says that he has given us everything from our birth along to where we are at now, the least we can do is offer it back to him. So Lord Vamana, he after this, he visited the sacrificial arena of the northern side of the Narmada River. At that field is known as Brigukacha, which is where Brahmanas of the Brigu dynasty were performing yagnas. So wearing a belt made of munja straw, an upper garment of deerskin, and a sacred thread, and carrying in his hands a danda, and also an umbrella and a water pot known as Kamandalu. So Lord Vamandev appeared in the sacrificial arena of Maharaj Bali. Now, Bali Maharaj performed 100 Ashwamedh yagnas when he was ruling very powerfully. And Lord Vamandev, being so little at that time, can you imagine a great Maharaj like Bali Maharaj and a little Vamandev walking towards him? So now Lord Vamandev, being so little, just by himself, walked with his bare feet and came upon the area where the sacrifice was happening on the banks of the Narmada River. Now, when he saw him, the little dwarf, he was so effulgent, he was so beautiful, his skin radiated. And it didn't just radiate like our skins when we put makeup on or when we put sunscreen on, we can see that radiation. No, it radiated with purity and with compassion. And with that sort, all the sages and Bali Maharaj, after seeing this, their hearts were filled with joy. Now, this sort of beauty isn't something we can see in our day and age. That sort of beauty where a person, just by seeing them, your heart just melts and it's just filled with joy. Excuse me, sorry. So when Vamandev, he appeared before Bali Maharaj immediately wanted to offer his respectful obeisances. But at that stage, he wasn't able to because of the presence of Shukracharya. And there's so many other demoniac associates there. Now, the Lord is so merciful, however, that although Bali Maharaj didn't actually offer obeisances, but only endeavored to do so, in his mind, the Supreme Personality of God had blessed him that with more mercy than ever, that even the demigods weren't expecting that much. It is said that in Bhagavad Gita 2.4, it says, Swalpam api asya dharmasya trayate mahato bhagat, that even a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead is known as Bhava Grahi Janardhana, because he takes only the essence of a devotee's attitude. So if a devotee sincerely surrenders, if a devotee sincerely surrenders the Lord and to the Super Soul, which is already in everyone's heart, immediately understands this. So even if we don't chant Krishna's names, if we just think about, I want to chant Krishna's names, then that's enough for getting the Lord's mercy. That doesn't mean we just think about all day that, okay, I'll chant Krishna's names here or then. That's for people who are still in that stage of thinking, is this the right way to go? Now, thus, even though a devotee externally might not offer service, but if internally they are sincere and serious, the Lord welcomes this service and offers his mercy. Thus, the Lord is known as Bhava Grahi Janardhana, because he takes the essence of a devotee's mentality, of one's devotional capability. And this is part of Srila Prabhupada's purport in Srimad Bhagavatam 8.23.2. So, as Lord Vamandev approached, Bali Maharaj stood up, and all the Brahmins who were performing the yagna with him, they also stood up to honor and welcome Lord Vamandev with prayers. Now, Bali Maharaj bowed down and with deep affection offered Vamandev a very honorable seat. Now, Bali Maharaj at that time was the owner of everything. It's very exaggerated, but everything was under his control, and yet he offered Vamandev an even greater seat than his own. That shows the the amount of respect that is given to gurus and the amount of respect everyone should be giving to gurus. Now, it is said that even Lord Shiva, he accepts that on his head the Ganges water, which is generated from the toe of Lord Vamandev. Now, this is Lord Shiva we're talking. That even he accepts the he accepts the water from the Ganges, which is generated from the toe of Lord Vamandev. And then after that, Bali Maharaj, according to proper etiquette, washed the feet of Vamandev, and those same feet later became the source of the Ganges, and then was drunk by Bali Maharaj with great feeling. Then Bali Maharaj inquired of Lord Vamandev's welfare and requested the Lord to ask him for any money or jewels or anything that he might desire. He said, "You have come and you have blessed me. You have blessed everyone. Such a blessing you have given to us just through your presence. You have sanctified my life. You have sanctified the whole Yagnashala. Please take whatever charity you wish. I can give you cows. I can give you property." Again, this person owns everything. I can give you property. I can give you homes. I can give you your own island. Whatever you desire, jewels, ask for whatever, anything you want. And Vamandev replied by saying, "If you wish to give me something, then please give me 3 steps of land." As we know, it's a very famous pastime, and we just celebrated Vaman Dwadashi a couple of weeks ago as well. So at that point, as Vamandev said, just please give me 3 steps of land. At that point, Shukracharya, as we know, he clearly understood what was going on here. He spoke very strongly to Bali Maharaj. He said, "Don't give him anything. Don't give him these 3 steps of land, because he is the friend of your enemy. He is Vishnu. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He has come to cheat you. With these 3 steps of land, he will cover everything you own, and he has come to cheat you. He has come to take everything away from you." Now, if you think about it, everything was going smoothly. Vamandev asked for 3 steps of land, and Bali Maharaj was happily accepting that, "I will give you 3 steps of land." And then, as we know, we see this in Kali Yuga, in Indian movies or Indian serials. There's always that one person that needs to butt in just to ruin everything that's happening. It's such a beautiful moment, but no, you will not give. Now, Bali Maharaj said that, "I have already promised. I have already given him what he wants." And Shukracharya, he knew all the scriptures quite thoroughly. And the nature of a scholar who knows all the scriptures is that he can take whatever he needs in the scriptures to justify whatever he wants to do or whatever he wants to say. It's very classic in the way that people nowadays, we justify our actions with whatever we think is right. But Shukracharya was justifying what he is doing by his knowledge of the scriptures. Now, that was a problem. So Shukracharya was quoting the scriptures. He said, "Yes, you have given a promise, but there are times and circumstances where the scriptures sanction breaking your promise." And then he started giving a whole list of reasons, especially when there was an emergency situation. And he gave all Shastric evidence along with very, very harsh, prominent order that you must break your promise and you must not give him anything. Now, Bali Maharaj was very thoughtful, and he paused and began to meditate. He said, "There is nothing more sacred than one's truthfulness." I'll repeat this very beautiful line. There is nothing more sacred than one's truthfulness. If you lose everything, even if you lose everything, if you are truthful, you have something substantial. You have honor. What is the use if you have so much material opulence, so many material things, but you lose your honor? In fact, it's described in that chapter that Mother Earth can tolerate any type of burden, but she can't tolerate the burden of one liar stepping upon her. In fact, in this age of Kali, it's the last living leg of religiosity that's wobbling but still existing: truthfulness. Truthfulness is known as one of the most important of all religious principles. In fact, it's one of the 4 legs of Dharma, and amongst Civilized people who have some sort of spiritual culture, they never tell a lie and never for their own purpose. Now, a classic example of this is Yudhishthira Maharaj. Yudhishthira Maharaj was always truthful. Only when Krishna directly told him to tell a lie, even then he hesitated. So it says, Sarvadharma Prityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. You can abandon all varieties of dharma and surrender to Krishna. But devotees can't misuse this principle. Sometimes there is a transcendental trickery in an emergency situation. An emergency situation, Prabhupada explains that if a child is sick and he is dying and he won't take his medicine, a mother would say, "Oh, eat this. This is a very beautiful laddu." And then the child will ask, "Is the medicine in it?" And the mother will say, "No, it's just the laddu." But in fact, the medicine is inside it. So is she considered a liar? Because her purpose of that lie is so selfless, and there is absolutely no selfish motivation behind that lie. She is simply doing it out of a crisis, out of an emergency, to save the life of her child. So sometimes, for this reason, we may have to change the truth to save someone's life. Now, however, if it's not a crisis and it isn't done in a totally selfless spirit, then we're incriminating ourselves for horrible karma because we're lying, which is something that we shouldn't be doing. Now, in this age of Kali, we lie in for everything. Even if it's a harmless, like little lie. Let's say someone calls me. I'm supposed to be going somewhere. Someone calls me, says, "Where are you?" And then you say, "I'm on the way," but in fact you're still sleeping. That's a lie which you've was needless. You could have just said the truth and had that your pages would be clean rather than like someone ticking off, okay, he lied here. So many examples of this. Little things when we talk to each other at our house, or not our house, but like just everyone in general, families in general. You say one thing and you mean another. You lie with little lies here and there, and eventually it all builds up. We might not think that that little lie that you told your parents, or that little lie you told your friend, you might think, "Oh, I'm just doing it just for fun," or "I'm just doing it so he doesn't get like offended." But the fact is, if you are lying, you're breaking one of the four legs of dharma. So in this age of Kali, as we know, a very famous thing from Nectar of Instruction, Prajalpa, Gramya Katha, it's so prominent. We just don't take these things seriously nowadays, that we think that lying, okay, it's fine, nothing's going to happen, it's not like I lie for everything. But in fact, when we start that little lie here, little lie there, eventually we start lying for everything. Now, yeah, so Jivefale Vishay Sagore, the tongue is the most difficult of all senses to control. The tongue can bring us back home, back to Godhead, if it liberates the holy name, and the tongue can also make us plummet down to the hellish conditions by speaking disrespectfully or by lying. So yes, like we should be taking this very seriously. Prabhupada took this very seriously as well when he was talking. So truthfulness is all important, and we should all be focusing on it. Sometimes for the higher truth, we might have to change the truth, the relative truth, but is it really for the higher truth? That's what we should be asking every time we want to lie. According to our mind, we might think it is, but if we think in the whole grand scale of things, it's not. We should think according to Krishna's perception. If we tell a lie for any personal selfish interests, then we are incriminating ourselves in karma. And if we lie to a devotee, if we lie to God, how much are we going to have to pay for those consequences? A lot, eventually. So a person who has actual spiritual and religious principles, he is willing to risk and sacrifice many cheap things of this temporary world just to sustain the higher principle of truthfulness. And that was Bali Maharaj. His honor of being truthful was more precious than all of his kingdom, than his whole life, because the Mother Earth couldn't tolerate the burden of a liar. And he was thinking, my guru is supposed to teach me how to surrender to Vishnu. So my guru is telling me this is Vishnu, but don't surrender. Therefore, he isn't a bona fide guru. So he turned to Vamandev and he said, yes, I will grant your request. You may take your 3 steps of land. So Shukracharya was really offended now, and this was a very difficult situation. Not everything is always like easy. At that point, in Bhagavatam, sorry, not in Bhagavatam, in a lecture that Prabhupada was giving, he explains so many reasons why, if Vamandev wasn't Krishna, why Shukracharya had a point to make. But the fact that Shukracharya knows that Vamandev is Vishnu, and then he said that, then that makes a very awkward situation. Now, as I said, in this age of Kali, we lie about the smallest things. We lie about having, we lie in the smallest situations and for the smallest things. And what to say when there's an emergency situation, then we lie, of course. Like, that's already given. Now, when someone asks us where we are, what are we doing, instead of making up something or thinking, what would this person think? Just say the truth. When someone asks us what we're doing and we give them the wrong answer, the reason for us giving this wrong answer is judgment. We care about what other people will think of us given our answer to them. And what we should worry about is the big score at the end. Should we care about what one human or one person thinks about us or thinks about what we're going to say, rather than we see like Chitragupta watching us, not Chitragupta, sorry, we see Yamaraj adding to his ticket every time that this person is lying here, lie here. In the big ticket, he says that he's cheating, he's lying. And I think that someone up there is watching, that is definitely more scary than what someone thinks here. So this was the first part of the katha, up to the very exciting part. So we'll finish the katha here, but then we'll finish the rest of the katha off tomorrow. Now, in this Leela, there are 10 distinct lessons that we get to experience from the pastime and avatar of Vamandev. So I'll introduce the first 5, and then we'll do the rest of the Gatha tomorrow, and then the last 5 lessons tomorrow. So, number 1, that God comes to this earth, comes to this world in many forms, not just once in one form, but many times in the same form, but also a lot of times in many forms. He is never limited by form, and that still acts as that he remains all-powerful. That doesn't change the fact that he has many forms, that his power diminishes or his power goes down a bit, different levels depending on what avatar it is. No, the power remains the same, all-powerful. That's the first lesson from here. Lesson number 2, that all demigods are meant to offer homage to him. Now, this did happen when we, like, as you can remember when I said that the young child, he was awarded the sacred thread by Brahaspati, and then the sun god gave him the Gayatri mantra, Kashyapa Muni gave him the straw belt, Bhumi Devi gave him the deer skin, Lord Brahma gave him the water pot, Kuvera gave him the baking bowl, and Lord Shiva's wife Parvati gave him the first of alms. Now, in this way, the gods all offered the best of what they had to the Supreme God. So each of us in our own way must give the best of what we own. We must give the best of our talents. We must give the best of our intelligence, our words, our wealth, as a gift to God. He gave everything to us, and the least that we can do for all the things that we've been given is give something back. Now, in terms of talents, services, main thing is service. What things are you good at which will be considered a service to Krishna? It doesn't even have to be something you're good at. You can learn at something and then become good at it and then serve Krishna. That really little things. Let's say you have a flower pot in your front yard. And every week when that one flower grows, you pick up that flower and you give it to Krishna. Now that's not a talent, but it's something. At least you are thinking selflessly and not for yourself that I'll use this flower, but rather you want to give it to Krishna. Same thing, intelligence. The words that we speak, the shlokas, the mantras, the songs, the everything that comes out of our mouth should be for the glorification of Krishna. Now, Krishna gave all of this to us so that we would offer it back. Like nowadays, in our modern generation, in Kali Yuga, we are so unappreciative. We are so mentally, like, just a weird conception that we all have is that when it comes to offering something to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, often a lot of questions get raised that God is almighty. Why does he need anything from me? If he is really the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as we think he is, then why does he need to eat my food? Why should I give my food to him before eating? Now, instead of offering to God, instead of wasting all that food by giving to God, by let's say for Shivji, pouring milk on top of Shivji, or just giving a flower garland, all of that, or donations, all of that. Why is that necessary if he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And instead of offering all this stuff, instead of giving all these things to the Lord, why don't I give it to someone who's in actual need, like a beggar, or someone who isn't as fortunate as me to be serving Krishna? Rather, he can also serve. Now, this is wrong, partially correct, partially wrong. When we get old and we're about to die, and our hospital bill, let's say it's $5,000. Now, we expect our children that they will pay for that $5,000. Now, would we expect our children to come to you and say, no, I am not going to pay this? Instead, you're going to die anyway. I'm just going to give you $5,000 to a beggar. Now, firstly, of course we wouldn't want this. This is something we wouldn't want. And this is something that, as a parent, you would feel as very, like, I gave my child everything. And when it comes to saving me, when it comes to helping me, he isn't even going to give me some money. Like, it's very, we would expect our children to say yes. Now, what we need to establish is a chain of ownership. This money that we are calling ours is not ours. The food we are calling ours is not ours. The house, the car, all of these things that we are calling as, like, mine is not mine. Now, firstly, Krishna gives us all of these things. Now, Krishna doesn't need us to offer all these things back. He is the almighty, all-pervading. He is the greatest being ever. And he doesn't need any of this because he has given it to us. Now, the point here is, he is self-sufficient. He is self-manifesting. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why should I give him my stuff? The fact is, he doesn't need any of our stuff. Rather, we need to offer him stuff. Now, why do we need to offer him stuff? For the sake of our own purification. If everything we eat, everything we drink, everything we do, everything we have in our homes, if it has been offered to Krishna, it becomes purified. Now, if we have any sort of living, if we are living in any sort of good life, then having this is good. But if we are living a bad life, just offering to Krishna makes us purified, because the stuff, it has been purified by Krishna himself. Now, while we're on this subject matter, I was asked a question once where they asked that if I follow in this path of Krishna consciousness, is there any sort of guarantee that I would get that I won't be in pain, or I won't have any sort of sadness or any sort of sorrow? And the fact is that this isn't true. There's no guarantee that if you follow Krishna consciousness that you're going to be free of all pain. It's like the medicine of the 21st century. No, it's not. None of it's like that. The fact is, following Krishna consciousness allows us to handle the pain. It's like a person, let's say there's two people. One person is in a Mercedes, and one person is in a rickshaw, and there's a massive speed bump. Now the Mercedes with all the breakers and everything goes over, still feels the bump, but gets over pretty smooth. Now the rickshaw will feel the bump, but it will feel it in a greater way than the Mercedes. Now the fact is, following Krishna consciousness makes us allow that we still get those bumps. We still have those speed barriers of pain, sorrow, being upset, just sadness. We still have those blocks. But the fact is, with Krishna consciousness, with Krishna in our hearts, with us chanting, with us performing everything well, the fact is that that speed bump, um, uh, the speed bump will feel less aggressive than if we were on a rickshaw. So by performing, we get upgraded from each car, from, let's say, from a cycle to a rickshaw to an auto rickshaw to a bike to a car to a fancy car to a Mercedes, which is very smooth over the speed bump, and then eventually we just sit in a helicopter. There's no speed bump, and we go back to Godhead. Now, people think that following God doesn't exist because I'm sad, and if I am the son, if I am considered the child of God, why am I in pain? This, that. The fact is, they're not understanding that Krishna has sent us for a reason. We're here to glorify Him. That is the main purpose of our life. To serve. Service is the main purpose of a human's life. Now, service to Krishna is the main purpose of a devotee's life. So, that the example of a Mercedes and a rickshaw, I found that very what's to say close to what we are nowadays. We think of ourselves that, oh, I got another speed bump yesterday, had another speed bump, this, that. But if you don't start the process of getting a better car, then how will we know that there is such thing as a better car? For example, if someone wants to, let's say, someone wants to study at Sydney University, it's a very good uni, someone wants to study there. Now, is that person just going to sit there and think, should I study there, should I not study there, what's going to be good, what's going to be bad, blah, blah, blah? No. That person is going to apply for Sydney University, and then if they get it, then they get it. That's the whole... You have to start the process of actually chanting, of actually doing everything in Krishna, in a good Krishna conscious mood, so that when it does come to that stage, we have progress from that rickshaw to that Mercedes, and then we can easily clear the bump, and then eventually, who knows, if we do it properly, then we can enter the helicopter. So that was number 2. Now the third lesson was that upon seeing Vaman there from a distance, so Bali Maharaj, he noticed, like I said before, the sun-like effulgence of this little boy, and he washed his feet, and Bali Maharaj was thinking of himself as a great proprietor, as like the owner of earth. And Bali then asked Vamandev that if he would like to be given in charity, and of course we know Vamandev said he wanted 3 paces of land, and as measured, Vamandev's 3 steps of land are probably as big as, let's say, 2 steps of a tall person. So it's very small if you think about it. Now, the king smiled because it's such a small request to someone who already owns everything. The proportion, we can't even think about how much power and how many things that Bali Maharaj actually owned. So at that point, many people they smile at the thought that God asks us for only 3 words if you think about it: Hare, Krishna, and Rama, and it's all just spoken in a mantra. But as we speak those 3 words, we actually begin to realize that it's actually changing our life forever within our hearts. Now, these 3 words are like the 3 steps of Vamandev. Those 3 steps that Vamandev took. Now, if you think about it, 3 steps is nothing. It's like anything you do. I was reading somewhere in Atomic Habits, one of the books I've been reading. It says in there that if you do 0.01% of something every single day you progress with something 0.01%. Eventually, I think it was like 36% you've improved. But if you go negative 0.0, if you go 0%, so you don't progress at all, then it's just consistently at 0. So even that little bit, so even that little first mantra, you say the mantra once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. Eventually you build yourself up to one round, 108 times. Same way, Vaman built himself up from the 3 little steps that could have been, to expanding himself into a gigantic form for 3 steps that covered everything. And that's like these 3 words, Hare Krishna and Rama. These 3 words in the mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. These 3 words in that mantra is in the grand scale of things, covers everything. As long as we just start with the little words, little mantra, we start, it builds up to everything that we need to get out of this cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. Sorry, excuse me. So, Vaman he teaches Bali Maharaj, this is the 4th one by the way, that an enlightened human being, we're supposed to be satisfied as human beings, because those who are not satisfied with what they have actually will never be satisfied, even if they gain everything. We see this every day in our day-to-day life. Rich people, wealthy people, no matter how much money, how much they have, they're never truly satisfied. And we see this, everyone says money isn't happiness. But that is very true, because if you're not satisfied with a little bit of money, even if you have a lot of money, you still won't be satisfied, because you don't know the purpose of life. The purpose of life isn't to accumulate wealth. In Hindi, there's a saying, Kalihat ayate, kalihat jayenge, which means that you come empty-handed, you leave empty-handed. It's not like you're taking your 3 house mortgages and everything to your grave. No, you're taking nothing. It's just going to be you in that grave. That's it. It's pretty funny if you think about it. Like, imagine taking your 2 cars, all your money you've accumulated in your whole life ever, including taxes, everything in a bag, put with you in your grave, and you take it with you wherever you go. It doesn't work like that. So in that same way, if we're not satisfied with the little things that we have, or the little things that we need, but we don't get, then we should still be satisfied, because that's not the purpose of our life. Now, a man or a woman practicing a spiritual life must never be dissatisfied. And for such dissatisfaction, they sprinkle water on the inner fire of their spiritual potency. So every time our fire of spiritual potency, which is growing in our heart, the fact that we could have some sort of Krishna conscious base, Krishna conscious life, anytime we're dissatisfied with anything in our life, it's like you have a bonfire, and you just, instead of pouring petrol in the form of chanting, dancing, prasadam, all that, you're just pouring water over it, so it's just diminished. Slowly it gets diminished. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, chapter 19, verse 22, it says, Tribikramir ashantushto dipena pina puryate nava varsha sametena sapta dipa varechaya. It is said that if I were not satisfied with 3 paces of land, then surely I would not be satisfied with even possessing one of the 7 islands, consisting of 9 versions. Even if I possessed one island, I would hope to get others. The next verse, Canto 8, chapter 19, verse 23. Sapta dvipa dipatayo nirpavaina gayadaya arthaya kamirgata naintam jishnaya iti nashkrutam. We have heard that although powerful kings like Maharaj Prithu and Maharaj Gaya achieved proprietorship over the 7 dvipas, they could not achieve satisfaction or find the end of their ambitions. Again, no matter how much, let's say, we'll do an exercise right now. Anyone who's listening, if you think about the one thing in your heart that you want with your whole heart, you just really want some material possession. If you're already a pure devotee, sorry, don't do this because it won't work. But let's say you want some material benediction. Let's say you've done tapasya and some Bhagwan has come to you and says, I will give you whatever you want right now. It has to be a material benediction. Now let's say, think of that moment, and then now think of the moment you have that thing. Will you be satisfied with that thing for the rest of your life? No. At that point, when you have that thing, then your mind wanders on to some other thing. For example, like let's say, I'll give my example. When for cricket, I'll give my example that let's say I buy a bat. Once I get the bat and I start batting with it, and I feel good that okay, this was the thing I really wanted with all my heart, everything. But then I see on the news, on TV, I see this new limited edition bat, and then again my mind wanders. I think, oh, maybe I should have gotten that one. But then even if I had that one, I would still think of this other one, and then it just never stops. All these material things, it keeps building along. And anything, it's not just material possessions. Let's say you get a job that you really wanted. Will that really give you the satisfaction of, let's say, being peaceful with yourself? Will that give you the satisfaction that, okay, I don't need anything else ever? No, it doesn't work like that. So, like as it says here, that they could never achieve the satisfaction or find the end of their ambitions. Again, in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 19, verse 24, it says, Yajjaya yapana pena santushto vartate sukham nashantustastrabhir lokir ajitatmo pasaditaha. That says one should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. A person who is not self-controlled would not be happy, even with possessing the three worlds. Now, Bali Maharaj already had the three worlds. So these three steps that Vaman was asking was like, it's like when you're an adult and a little child comes to you and he says, oh, I was very scared to ask you, but can I have that $1 chocolate? Now, for us, we think, oh, $1, that's fine. For the child, he's thinking, oh my god, I need to ask this person something so intimidating. I'm asking him for his whole world, but rather he doesn't know that $1 is nothing. Compared to that, Bali Maharaj is thinking like that. Now, in that same way, when he probably knew that this is Vishnu, he's going to take everything. But for the Leela's sake, that's what we're thinking, that Bali Maharaj, that's how he was thinking. Now, in the purport, it says of verse 24, that if happiness is the ultimate goal of life, one should be satisfied with the position they are in and the position they are placed by in providence. Now, there's instructions given by Prahlad Maharaj. It says, Sukham Aindriyakam Daitya Deha Yogena Dehinam Savatra Labate Devat Yatha Dukham Ayatnataha. That my dear friends born on demoniac families. Now, this is when Prahlad Maharaj was talking to his classmates. It's very fun, like very good Leela there as well. That my dear friends born on demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 6, verse 3. Now, this philosophy in regard to obtaining happiness, this is the philosophy in regards to obtaining happiness. Now, in Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 6, verse 21, real happiness is described as Sukham Atyan Itkam Yattad Buddhi Grayam Atindikam Yeti Yatra Na Chaivayam Stitas Kaleti Tatvataha. That in a spiritually joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. One has to perceive happiness by the supersenses. The supersenses are not the senses of material elements. Every one of us is in a spiritual us is a spiritual being, aham brahmasmi. That and every one of us is an individual person. Now, our senses themselves are covered by material elements, and because of ignorance, we consider the material senses that cover us to be our real senses. The real senses, however, are within the material covering. Dehi nosmin yata dehe, Bhagavad Gita 2.13. Within the covering of material elements are the spiritual senses. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam, tat paratvena nirmalam. In Madhya Lila, CC, chapter 19, verse 170. That when spiritual senses are uncovered by their senses, we can be happy. So satisfaction of spiritual senses is thus described as rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchate. That when senses are engaged in devotional service to Rishikesha, then the senses are completely satisfied. Without the superior knowledge of sense gratification, one may try to satisfy his material senses, but happiness will never be possible. Now, this is a very, very nice point. I'm going to repeat it one more time, that without this superior knowledge of sense gratification, one may try to satisfy his material senses, but happiness would never be possible. So no matter how much we try that, I need this one thing to get happiness. If I go to this one country for 2 months of holiday without pay, I'll be happy for the rest of my life. No, it doesn't work like that. If I get that beautiful Ferrari, that my heart will just, I'll be done with everything. No, you still be looking for different things that you would want. Your heart is never fully fulfilled. Again, if I got this one job with this much pay, with this house, this car, this wife, this property, estate, this everything, no, you still won't be happy. As it says, happiness will never be possible. Now, one may increase his ambition for sense gratification and even achieve what he desires for this sense gratification with his own senses. But because this is all on this material platform, he will never achieve satisfaction and contentment. Like I said, we get everything we've ever wanted and we'll still not achieve any sort of satisfaction, contentment. Think about the last thing that you really wanted and that you got. At that point, did we really think that that was the be-all, end-all? If I got that thing, I would be happy forever. No. Of course, at that point, we'll think like that. But then once we get the thing that we wanted, we will be like, okay, but this was all I was thinking. Like, it's not as good as it seemed. So according to Brahminical culture, one should be content with one should be content with whatever he obtains without special endeavor, and should cultivate spiritual consciousness, and then he will be happy. This purpose of of this whole movement, of the KC movement, is to spread this understanding. People who do not have any sort of scientific spiritual knowledge, they mistakenly think that the members of Krishna conscious movement, they're just escapists. They're just people trying to avoid material activities. In fact, those material activities aren't worth to be engaged in. In fact, however, when we are engaged in real activities for obtaining ultimate happiness in life, then people think of us as, oh, this person is crazy because all this stuff isn't real. But in fact, obtaining the ultimate happiness of life is a real goal of life. So if one is not trained to satisfy the spiritual senses and continues in material sense gratification, he will never obtain happiness. That is eternal and blissful. And that this is from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.1. Therefore, it is recommended that tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam sudhyed yasmad brahma sukhyam tava antam. That one must practice austerity so that his existential position will be purified, and he will then achieve an unlimited blissful life. Now, this was number 4 of our lessons learned from Vaman Dev's Katha. Number 5 is that Bali Maharaj's guru, Shukracharya, was perceptive enough to understand what was happening in that situation. Who that young boy was, what was going to happen, what was Vamandev going to ask for. But he counseled the king to deny the request, even though he knew that it was Vishnu himself asking. Thus, Shukracharya was an atheist, even though he learned all the Vedas, even though he had so much knowledge. Such a guru who stands in the way of his disciples' emancipation is fit to be rejected. Now, I've given this example a lot of times, but I'll bring it up again because it's very relevant. We see in India, in every street, there's different gurus that we see. And the fact is that these gurus are preaching something which is sure to be rejected. Some gurus think of themselves as the supreme personality of Godhead. Now that's a big statement to give to a human being, especially in Kali Yuga, like right now. That this person sitting in a little street in New Delhi, in a little corner with my 5 disciples, I am the supreme personality of Godhead. I'm controlling what everyone is doing at a particular time. Now, that is something which I feel is very, as humans, we should not appreciate those types of things. But yet, we see so many gurus, not ISKCON gurus, but so many gurus outside of this movement who think of themselves as this high staged person. Now, I'm not saying all that is bad, but what they're preaching is bad. What they're saying about that I am the supreme. In fact, the fact is that if they had any sort of qualification, any sort of knowledge after reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, chanting, anything, then they wouldn't be saying those sorts of things. And in fact, the blind faith of so many people, I'll give an example of just India itself, that people are following these gurus in majorities, not just 10, 15 people, but in thousands and thousands of people. It's just crazy to think about. But this is what our modern civilization has come to, that people will believe anything which they think will provide them with that 5-10 minutes of happiness, or that something that will give them that pleasure for a limited time. Again, all these things, it's the factoring word is limited. It's not that we can't get happiness. We can get happiness, but it's just limited. What we want is eternal happiness, eternal bliss. And how do we get that? The only way we can get that is through chanting, through the glory, talking about the glories of the Lord, through eating prasadam, through associating with devotees. And if we do all those things, then eventually we will be blissful for a long time. Like I said, we'll transition from that rickshaw to that car, and then eventually we'll be so blissful that we'll continue on. Even though we'll have those speed bumps, we'll still continue on, and then from that car we'll go into that helicopter that eventually will send us back home, back to Godhead. So this is all for today. So we'll meet again tomorrow at 7:30 for the rest of the Vamandev Katha, along with the last 5 lessons that we get from this Leela. So once again, I would like to thank everyone for attending, and please, if I did happen to make any mistake while speaking, please forgive me. So again, we'll speak on the last part of the Vamandev Katha, which I purposefully had for tomorrow. So yeah, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Brahmanande Haribol. Thank you everyone for listening.